Welcome to episode 8 of Momentous Struggle. On today's episode, we will be discussing the core characters of Ahsoka Tano, Bo-Katan, and Bo-Katan's Mandolorians of Clan Kryze, also known as the Night Owls. As always, my name is Todd, also known as Cliffjumper6. Let's jump in there. So the squad box, from what we understand it to be, with each individual, we're looking at the core box broken down into 4 squads, with Asajj Ventress being one of the primaries with her squad, Anakin with a primary with one of his squads, and Maul being a primary with one of his squads. We're left with the 4th, which is of course Ahsoka Tano, Jedi No More, with the wonderful young lady that is known as Bo-Katan and her Mandalorians, also known as the Night Owls. For starters, I will say I absolutely love these sculpts. They are very dynamic looking. I love the pose on Ahsoka. I love the pose on Bo-Katan, and just the jetpacks. That they are very amazing looking models and look like they're going to be a blast to paint. So let's go ahead and just jump in and talk about Ahsoka. So Ahsoka Tano, as many know, was the padawan to Anakin Skywalker. When looking at Ahsoka, though, this is not the Ahsoka that was the padawan. This is the Ahsoka that has already left the Jedi Order and has gone off on her own adventure as someone who has decided to separate herself from the Jedi Order. And I definitely would recommend watching the Clone Wars to kind of see how that dynamic happens. You can see it building as she goes on different missions and everything along those lines, seeing that separation. But there was definitely a major event that took place with her that led to her leaving the Jedi Order. She was basically framed for a crime against the Jedi Order. The Jedi banished her, or barred her from the Jedi Order after this, so she could stand trial for her crimes with the Galactic Republic, and she was basically on trial for this crime as a war criminal because there was clones that were hurt and killed during this attack. So once everything went through and Anakin actually came back and cleared her and in front of the entire Republic Senate during the trial, at the right when her verdict was about to be announced, he came in and cleared her name, and she was invited back to the Jedi Council. But after everything she had been through, decided that she was going to stay barred from the Jedi Council at that time. She goes through her life kind of finding her own way and eventually runs into Bo-Katan as part of her finding her way in the universe, in the galaxy, which led her to fighting alongside Bo-Katan and the Night Owls and Mandalorians against Lord Maul and Gar Saxon and that sect of the Mandalorians during the Siege of Mandalore, which is an amazing story. It really shows, it leads into a lot of where the shows are going with where we got with the Mandalorian series. There's going to probably be some of that which leads into the upcoming Ahsoka series. So it's a very dynamic character, and it really jumps into all of the amazing things of that character and how much she's developed and why she is not a part of the Jedi Order, why she is, and also leads to how she survived Order 66, because she was not part of the Jedi Order at that time. So it's a very important piece of that character's development as far as how she was ousted from the Jedi Order, how she left the Republic Army, and where she got to with fighting alongside Bo-Katan to try and save Mandalore from Lord Maul at the time, and there's all sorts of things that can go down, as well as what happened with Mandalore and the lore behind that, which I'll probably jump into when we start talking about Bo-Katan a little bit more as well. But definitely a very unique character, and her journey to where she's gone from being a Padawan all the way through where she is as she's represented in this particular character, through up until, if you have watched the Mandalorian series, if you've watched the Book of Boba Fett series, where you see where she starts to get introduced and you see who she is as an individual. There's a lot of she's a very, like I said, very dynamic character. But all of that said, let's definitely jump into Ahsoka as far as Shatterpoint and what she looks like there. So Ahsoka Tano, Jedi No More, is your primary character. She is a one unit for herself, being Ahsoka. She comes with 3 force points. She will have 8 squad points. So when building your squad, you have 8 squad points to choose from. As I said, she is a primary character named Ahsoka Tano, Jedi No More. So she has one active ability, which is the force speed. That is going to cost you 1 force, and each character in this unit may advance. So that's of course going to be an action that is not going to be an action. That is something that she definitely can do. She can use the force to go ahead and make an advance move. So she has a lot of mobility because she can do that and also make an advance. Then she has 2 reactive abilities. The first one is what is probably going to be what is looked at as her most popular. It is What's the Matter Too Fast for You. Now this is going to cost 2 force in order to use this, and it is a reactive. So when a character in this unit would suffer 1 damage from a melee attack, and that's very important, it needs to be melee, this unit may use this ability. The unit suffers half the damage that in the damage pool, and the attacking unit would suffer the remaining damage. So a very good deflecting that damage back, as well as reducing her damage. But it is very expensive. You only have 3 force from her, and unless you're using Anakin, you're going to have 3 from your other primary. So that's going to be a third of your force pool just to use this. So again, going back to what I like to talk about with the force, making sure you're maintaining your force pool and using that appropriately, and not expending a lot of that by the time she does come up in your card pool is definitely important to do. That said, if you keep her back and you aren't engaged in melee, you do have the other reactive ability, which is Deflect. Deflect is after a ranged attack targeting this unit, a character in this unit, which of course is only going to be Ahsoka, is resolved. This unit may use this ability. And what this ability is, if the attacking roll contains 1 or more failures results, the attacking character may suffer 2 damage. So this does not cost any force as long as she is not injured. Remember, all of these abilities, the active and reactive, do cost force, but they have it like if you're not injured, then it would cost 0, and then you add 1 for each injury that they have. So if she has 2 injuries, of course this would cost 2. 1, it would cost 1. And then she does have an innate ability as well. That ability is called Fierce Protector. When an enemy character wounds another allied unit, this, after the effect is resolved, so after any type of wounding takes place, 1 character in this unit may advance towards the enemy character that causes effect. So it gives her even ability out of mobility after activation, which is amazing for her. So you can definitely move her around to try and get her into positions for a later turn if she has not already been activated, or you haven't already had your Shatterpoint card. So she definitely has a little bit of out of activation mobility, which is nice. Going to the next sentence in this, then the character that moved may heal 3. So there's 3 heals there. So if this character is engaged, and it says, or if this character is engaged with an enemy character, it may make a 5 dice melee attack targeting the enemy character. So you could move and heal, or you can move and attack depending on what is best for you. So this is an out of activation heal or an out of activation attack. And keep in mind, the heals are not just removing damage, they can also remove special conditions. So if she has a condition on her, you can move, heal 1, and remove 2 special conditions or something along those lines. So it is definitely something to look into when you're looking at and how you utilize this ability. And it being an innate ability, there is no force cost to it. So that is definitely really something to look at as far as how you are going to work through this particular character, how you're going to utilize Ahsoka. She's a very dynamic character, and she has a lot of utility. Not necessarily the one you want to throw forward and attack in all of the cases, but you can definitely want to look at how you place her and how you move her around. So let's go ahead and take a look now at her stance cards. And as a primary, she's going to have 2 sides to her stance card. The first one I want to look at is her Jarkai. That has a tree with basically 5 different attacks on it. So once you hit your 5 successes, that's it. So, but she's only rolling 7 attack dice on her melee. So let's go back a little bit here. She's looking at the attack dice that she has. In range, she has none. So she does not have a range. She needs to be within melee in order to do any type of attacking. Where again, with that innate, you definitely want to be able to move her into range where she can start doing attacks if someone gets wounded. So you're really hoping to activate her later in your order card draws, because you just aren't able to do any type of ranges. You want her to be able to move forward and attack if you're looking to attack her and not heal or do anything along those lines. If that's the actions that you're wanting, one of the actions you're wanting to do with her. So, of course, her melee, she has a 7 dice melee attack on this one. Both of her defenses are going to be 5 on this side. So, on her tree, the first 3 are on 1 level, and then it splits. So, you're looking at 2 damage for the first one. Second one is going to be a damage and a disarm. And then the third one is going to be 3 damage. So, right off the bat, just with 3, you're doing 6 damage before you even get to the split and a disarm. On the split, if you go to the top of the tree, it's 1 damage and a strain, and then 2 damage. If you go to the bottom of the strain, it's going to be 1 damage. It's going to be one damage and it's going to be 1 damage and a pin, and then the next is 1 damage and a shove. So it really looks at the top end is a little bit more damage. At the bottom is going to be a little bit more of manipulation of displacement and pinning them and things along those lines. So it's definitely a choice there as far as if you're going a little bit more damage or not. As far as her defense goes, again, she's rolling 5 defense dice on both melee and range. On her expertise chart, 1 to 2 for melee is going to be 2 successes. And again, this is for her on the attacks. So it's going to be 2 successes. 3 to 4 is going to be 2 crits, and then 5 plus is going to be 3 crits. And if we're looking at her defense, which is for acrobatics, she gets 1 to 2. She's going to get 2 blocks, and she changes one of the crits to a block. Or I'm sorry, one of the crits to a hit. On 3 to 4, she's going to get 2 blocks. She's going to get to change 1 crit again to a hit. And she is also going to get a jump. And then with 5 plus, it's 2 blocks, again changing a crit to a hit, a jump, and a heal. It's going to be pretty difficult with 5 dice. I mean, it's going to be pretty rare that you're going to get 5 expertise to show, but it is something that would be there. I mean, depending on if, like, say she has a hunker token, or something else that adds an extra dice to her. If she's got cover, you could potentially get like a couple more dice to roll or something along those lines. So that's always an option, but 5 plus is going to be definitely hard to hit on your defensive chart there. Looking at her other card, which is the Form 5. The Form 5 Shen Reverse Grip. This one is going to have less attack dice on it, so it's going to be more of a defensive side to start on. So if you were to go with that, again, no range attack. She's only melee. She's going to have 6 melee attack dice. And then against range on this one, she's going to have 7 defensive dice. And against melee, going to have 6 defensive dice. This tree has 5, but it immediately splits after the first. So looking at this, there's definitely going on the high side, is definitely healing her a lot more. So let's take a look at that. So you start out with a shove and a damage. And then if you go to the top of the tree, because you immediately split after the first one, so the second one is going to be 2 heals on the top. And then you're going to have a shove and a damage, a jump, and the next is a jump and 2 damage, and then 2 more heals. So if you were to fill this completely out, you can heal 4 times, along with a shove, a jump. So there's definitely some movement that happens there, along with a total of 4 damage. So it's very not damage intensive, but it definitely does help with heal and doing some mobility to possibly move out of a melee range if you're engaged or something along those lines. So a pretty good route to go if she's already hurting a little bit and you want to kind of put her in a position to make it harder for your opponent to move, or if you wanted to shove an opponent and then move out of melee range, something along those lines if she's engaged in melee. Now, if you go to the bottom of the tree, after that first shove and damage, you're going to have 1 damage and a jump, 2 damage and a shove, 2 damage and a pin, and 2 damage and another shove. So this line gives you 3 shoves, and then you get also that pin, as well as she can jump. So there's a lot of movement, a lot more movement that happens on the bottom one, and you're doing a little bit more damage. You're doing a total of 8 damage on that if you were to max out this side of the tree. So it is a good way to go if you're looking to go and do that much damage. If you want to do a little bit more damage and have a little bit more mobility of pushing someone off of a point, because you're doing 3 movements on this one of 3 shoves. So it total potentially that you can do against an opponent. So it really can displace an opponent's model that you're targeting in something like this. So that definitely is a good way to go if that's something that you're trying to do in that particular activation. So on her expertise table, again, she's got 1 to 3 will give you 2 hits, 2 successes. 4+ is going to give you 2 crits, and then 5+ gives you 2 crits and a hit. So again, not a lot of defense. This is not a very offensive side of the of her stance card. You definitely are wanting to look at being on the other side if you're trying to do damage output. This is more of a controlling, displacement, or healing side, like a support, like for the side of it. So you definitely want to look at making sure that whatever your plan is prior to making your first action, you want to make sure you're on the right side of a card for what you're wanting to do. On her expertise for her defense, again, it's acrobatics. This one, with just 1 success, she's going to have a block, and she's going to reduce a crit down to a hit. 2 to 3, she's getting 2 blocks, reducing a crit to a hit, and also getting a jump. And then 4+, she's going to have 2 blocks again. She's going to have that reduction from crit to hit. She's still going to have that jump, and she also gets a heal. So depending on what you're wanting to do, I mean, again, this is going to be the defensive side or the offensive side. Make sure you are keeping track of that when you jump in there to do this activation. So that wraps up basically what we're looking at for Ahsoka as she is. Let's go ahead and take a look at Bo-Katan, her normal supporting one. Her normal support. Of course, you don't have to take Bo-Katan with Ahsoka Tano at all. You can use whichever, when you're building your squad itself, you can use whichever secondary you want to use, and you can use whatever supporting characters you want to use. As I've mentioned previously, you definitely want to make sure that you are looking into the synergies when you're building these squads. There's a lot of synergies between Bo-Katan and the Mandolorians. So when doing your squad building, make sure that you take that into account with your secondaries and with your supporting units. of how they are going to interact with one another, because that can definitely help a lot. So looking at Bo-Katan, as I said, well, let's kind of jump into who she is as a character in the universe of Star Wars. So Bo-Katan, when we first meet Bo-Katan, she is definitely comes across as a villain. She is part of Death Watch when we first meet her in Star Wars. She and what she is, she comes from Mandalore. Mandalore is a planet of warriors, and they are all about their warrior mentality, their warrior lifestyle. But what we come to learn as we go through the Clone Wars series is that her sister is actually the person who is ruling Mandalore at the time. She is a self-proclaimed pacifist, not Bo-Katan, but her sister. She is a self-proclaimed pacifist, and basically is trying to stop Mandalore from being in the war. They are trying to remain neutral, not be involved in the war in any way, and she wants to keep the peace, keep her people alive by not fighting anymore. But again, this is not the history and the culture that is the Mandalorian culture. They are a culture of warriors. They want to fight. So Duchess Satine, who is the sister of Bo-Katan, is at odds with many people of the Mandalorian culture because they feel that she has gone soft. One of those people is her sister. She joins up with someone named Pre Vizsla in order to fight against that. That the what Mandalore has become, and they want to go back to the warrior culture that they have and embrace that warrior culture. So there is this conflict between them, and as time goes on, Pre Vizsla ends up joining up with Lord Maul. So as I was saying, as he joins up with Lord Maul, they infiltrate. They have almost a coup of sorts where they use a criminal organization known as the Shadow Collective to show that Mandalore is not strong enough to protect themselves under Duchess Satine's rule, and they come in and remove the Shadow Collective, which is all just a coup because the Shadow Collective actually does report to Lord Maul. They are part of his group. So Pre Vizsla comes in and removes them and removes this Shadow Collective from Mandalore, showing that Satine is not capable of protecting the planet, and takes over. And ultimately, Lord Maul ends up betraying Pre Vizsla and killing him and taking control of the Mandalorians through the warrior code of "I've killed you, now what you have is mine." To simplify it, basically, is he kills Pre, takes over as the controller of Pre's army, and takes over as basically the de facto ruler of Mandalore. He installs a former Prime Minister Almec, as to oversee Mandalore, but he ultimately Almec reports to Lord Maul and does what Lord Maul says, because Lord Maul is in the background, kind of pulling the strings, so to speak, of what is happening on Mandalore. When all of this happens, Bo-Katan realizes this is not what's good for Mandalore and leaves. She ends up, after Ahsoka ends up getting exiled or self-exiled from the Jedi Order, she ends up seeing her on a mission that kind of coincides with seeing that Maul is still alive. Maul is still doing some shady things in the underworld at that point in time, and Bo-Katan decides to make a connection with Ahsoka, and which leads to the siege on Mandalore, where Ahsoka, being she, fights alongside Bo-Katan and her her night owls in order to try and take out Maul's faction of Mandalorians from ruling the planet anymore. There is also a side part to this in which Ahsoka does reach out to the Jedi Order and her former master of Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi to enlist their help, since it is Lord Maul that's doing that. And actually, they do allow her to work as an advisor to have the Captain Rex and some of the 501st join her on the planet to go ahead and fight alongside Bo-Katan during this siege of Mandalore, this war on Mandalore. So it's a very interesting part of the Clone Wars. It's part of the last season. Definitely worth watching. It really is probably in my opinion, the best part of Clone Wars is seeing this end. It's what leads up to Order 66, and you kind of see why it gives you a reason why you don't see Anakin with Rex and all of his 501st during the time that he is in Episode 3. So it really gives a explanation behind that disconnect between him and Rex during that time, because Rex is actually alongside Ahsoka in Mandalore. So definitely I highly recommend taking a look at that piece of it and watching those particular that particular season, the last season of Clone Wars, because it is a very interesting thing, and I think that will lead into what we're probably going to see in that Ahsoka series that will be coming out as well. So if you are into the media piece of it and you are really into watching the Star Wars shows, which have been really well done in my opinion, totally worth checking that out. But all of that said, let's definitely jump into Bo-Katan herself as a character in Shatterpoint. So Bo-Katan is a secondary unit. Her point cost is 4. She has no force, and she is a single unit. So Bo-Katan Kryze is a single unit, a single model, so to speak. She has one ability right off the bat, which is called Pride of Mandalore. So at the start of this unit's activation, choose another allied Mandalorian character. That character may jump. So she automatically, right from the back, there's no range on this. She can just move a Mandalorian at the beginning of her activation, any Mandalorian. So that's where it comes into building those synergies that I was talking about with your secondaries and your supporting units, is having those Mandalorians. It almost in a lot of ways might make sense when you're doing your list building to have all Mandalorians, or like having all of those keywords, because if we look at her keywords, she has Clan Kryze, Death Watch, Mandalorian, and Night Owls. So she has both of the different factions of the Mandalorians that we've seen in the core set of Death Watch and Night Owls that are in there. So any keywords there is a crossover. So but you definitely want to look at these keywords and that synergy when you're looking at making your list building. So her only active ability that we're looking at here is her jetpack. That is going to cost a force for you, but it does allow each character in this unit to make a jump. Again, it's not an action, but you can go ahead and do a jump. Then she does have that was an active ability. She does have one reactive ability, which you'll see common throughout a lot of the Mandalorians, which is Mandalorians are stronger together. So after this unit makes a move action, so you do have to make an action to do this. You may use this ability. Again, this is no force unless there is a wound on her. If a character in this unit is within 2 of another allied Mandalorian unit, this unit immediately makes a focus action. So definitely can go ahead and do that. It's a way to sit there and do your move and then just get an automatic focus, because they're Mandalorians, they love to shoot, so you want to have that focus. Then she has 2 innate abilities. One, Mandalore will survive. So after this unit makes a focus action, so there again, let's look at the move, you focus, now you can use your innate ability. One character in this unit may dash and heal twice. So basically, if you're looking at it, she moves, she focuses, Then she goes ahead and can do she can heal, she can make a dash and heal. So there's a lot going on with this here. And then her next innate ability is some of us serve a higher purpose. Allied Mandalorian characters within 3 of this unit that are contesting 1 or more objectives have protection and steadfast. So she automatically is like, you kind of want to position her well. You want to look at how you're positioning her, because she's going to give additional abilities of protection and steadfast to her additional units, the additional units around her. So we haven't really touched on this, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of go over what protection and what steadfast are. Protection, when this character is defending, before applying damage, remove 1 damage from the damage pool. So they automatically are going to, it's an automatic reduction. So she's automatically going to reduce by 1 any damage to anybody that's within range of her. And then they also get steadfast. When this character is defending, it is not moved by the first shove effect that the attacking character chooses from their combat tree options. So they're going to reduce damage by 1, and then they're not going to be shoved if they only have 1 shove. So they have to have 2 shoves in order to move this character off of a point as well. So you really want to have her close to where she can protect your points. She's kind of a protector of the points through the other characters, so to speak. So she is a amazing character in that sense. So let's go ahead and start then next look at her combat tree. So since she is a supporting character, her stance card. So since she is a secondary character, not support, so since she's a secondary character, she's only going to have 1 side to this card. It's called close support. So let's look at, to start with, her dice. She has, her melee is 7, and then she has a range 4 attack, which is 6 dice. And then her defense is for both melee and for range attacks is both going to be 4. So she has a tree that has 2 splits in it. You have your first one that is all by itself, which is 2 damage, and then it splits. If you go to the top of the first split, it gives you a pin and a damage, and then 2 damage. And then at the bottom of the tree, it's going to give you a jump and a damage and a shove and a damage. So the bottom side is going to be a little less damage, but you have a little bit more repositioning that happens there, where the top side kind of is more of put a condition on it. Then after the third, you go down to, it condenses down into 1 again, where you're going to have a shove and a damage, and then it splits again at the very end for your last, which is the 5th one, which is either at the top gives you 2 damage, or at the bottom is going to give you another shove and a damage. So if you were to go all on the bottom, you could potentially have 3 shoves and a jump with a total of 6 damage. Where if you go on the top, which is the more damage-centric side of the tree, it's going to be a total of 8 damage with just 1 shove and 1 pin. So you're really going to look at, are you wanting the repositioning? Now, of course, you can go with the top, where you could end up like on the first part of it and then at the bottom. So you could go 2 damage, pin damage, 2 damage, and then go down again on your 4th, where it's going to be a shove and a damage and then shove again. So you could potentially do a pin and 2 damage or 2 shoves along with your damage. So there's definitely different ways to go on when you're going down this tree, because it does have 2 different splits in it. So that's something definitely to keep in mind there when you are looking at your damage tree and how you're going to interact with whoever your attack is going to be under. The next thing that you definitely we're going to look at is the expertise chart. So she has the Westar 35 blaster pistol. If she has 1 expertise, it's going to be a hit. If she has 2 to 3, it's going to be a critical hit and then a hit. And then 4+ is going to be 2 crits and a damage. So she definitely, it's as far as secondaries go, it's not too bad. Then looking at that's for ranged, her ranged attack. If she is in melee, again, it is the Westar 35 blaster, but in melee, at 1 she's going to get a hit, 2 to 3 she gets a crit and a hit. So basically, it's the same as with ranged or melee, and then the 4+ is going to be 2 crits and a damage. So it's basically the same. It's the same weapon, so it's going to be the same damage output on the expertise chart. when we're looking at the defensive side of the expertise chart, they have the Beskar armor. 1 to 3 is going to be 2 blocks. 4 to 5 is going to be 3 blocks. So the expertise chart, really the best you would want to do is really only hit 1 expertise and maybe like 3 blocks. Would be the best way to do it, because that would be a total of 5 blocks. That's probably going to be the best you could do. You really are not wanting to hit that 3+ of expertise, but it's better than a bunch of failures. So definitely a good way to go there. And the last unit that we're going to look at is going to be the Night Owls. So the Clan Kree's Mandolorians, which, as I said, are also known as the Night Owls, are also a 4-point cost character. They do have 0 force. They come with 2 separate models. So there's going to be 2 separate Mandalorians that are going to be involved in this with this particular unit. So that would be your total of 4 that you're traditionally seeing as 4 models that you're seeing on the table for each individual squad. A total of 8 for your strike forces is what we're seeing right now. That may change in the future, but that's what we're seeing at this time. They have 2 abilities. The first one being, which is their active ability, is Jetpack, which basically is 1 force without any wounds on them. Each character in this unit may jump. They have a reactive ability of Mandalorians are stronger together, which is the same as we have seen on Bo-Katan's card. And lastly is their innate ability of Helmet Visor. So characters in this unit have Sharpshooter 1. So we haven't talked about Sharpshooter, I believe, yet. So let's go ahead and address what Sharpshooter 1 is. When this character makes a focus action, it adds X dice to its ranged attack in addition to 1 attack dice for each additional focus action. So this is where that synergy of adding the focuses comes into play as well with the Mandalorians are stronger together. They move forward, they get that focus, and they're also going to have Sharpshooter, so that it starts adding dice to what they can do, so they can start building dice into their dice pool as things go on. So it's definitely something that you want to keep in mind, is building that dice pool. So that's where we look at, they could potentially have 2 or more dice added in before they end up doing an attack. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look into their stance card and how that works. Again, they have the first thing you'll see, because of course the biggest thing that your eyes are drawn to when you look at these stance cards is the tree itself, which will have 2 splits, and we'll definitely jump into that as we go on. So there, for starters, they can have melee and ranged attacks. Their melee isn't that great. It only has 5 dice, and they have 4 defensive dice on the melee side. On range, they are again also range 4, but they have 6 attack dice on that side and 5 defensive dice. So let's jump into their tree here. Their tree starts out separated, so you can either go top or bottom. Their top is going to have a pin and a damage, and the bottom is going to have a shove and a damage. So it's really, again, looking at, do you want to give them a shove? Do you want to pin them down to start with? The next thing that we're going to look at with them is they're going to go down into 1. So the tree condenses down into 1, where it has a shove and 2 damage. So right off the bat, if you start at the bottom, you're going to have two shoves right off of the bat. So there's a lot of displacement, again, that happens with the Mandalorians. They kind of push people off. Then immediately after that, we're going to have a split, where they're going to have a disarm on the top, and then on the bottom they're going to have an exposed. And myself personally, exposed is probably the condition that I think between that and strain are probably the 2 most powerful, I think. But that's until we get these on the table and start playing around with them a little bit more. That can definitely change. But as of right now, I definitely see expose and strain as the top 2 conditions that I'm looking to try and dish out. So after that 3rd level, it does go down into 1 again for the last 2. The 4th one is going to have a shove and a damage, and the last one is going to do 2 damage. So at maximum, whether you're going top or bottom, you're going to have a total of 6 damage that you're going to be able to do if you get all 5 successes to go through. It really looks at along the lines of if you want to disarm or potentially do 3 shoves, and also whether you want to disarm or you want to expose. So that's really what you're looking for as far as that tree is concerned. On the expertise chart for melee, again, you have the Westar 35 blaster, which is at 1 to 2 gives you 1 success, 1 hit. On 3 to 4, you're going to have 1 critical and 1 hit. And then 5 plus again is going to give you that 2 crits and 1 success or 1 hit. Then in melee, 1 to 2 gives you 1 hit, 3 plus gives you 2 criticals. But again, you're really wanting to kind of stay out of that melee range. You're really wanting to shoot. Again, as the game goes on, everyone's kind of going to be putting people in, positioning them how they want. So it might not always be feasible to sit there and stay outside of melee range, but it is something that you want to try and do when you're positioning your characters around the board. On the defensive side of the expertise chart, you can have the Beskar armor. 1 gives you 1 block, 2 plus gives you 2 blocks. So you really don't want to roll over 2 expertise on your defensive dice, but you're only rolling 4 to 5. So hopefully you're not going to be hitting more than 2 on that to begin with. But that basically sums up what we're looking at for this particular this particular box, so to speak, of the Mandalorians and the Mandalorians, Bo-Katan, and Ahsoka Tano. Again, all of these units can be played separately. They don't have to come as one particular unit, but totally worth looking into running the Mandalorians together. I think there's going to be a lot of synergies there that you want to play off of. So if you are going to play the Mandalorian, if you are going to play Bo-Katan, it's totally a good idea, in my opinion, to take her Mandalorians or even the Death Watch Mandalorians alongside of them, so that you are getting those synergies. So you really want to look at those synergies when you're doing your building of your team and everything along those lines. That will end our episode today with our rundown of Bo-Katan, of Ahsoka Tano, and Clan Kryze. As always, I want to thank everyone that has listened to this podcast today. I am going to try something new and throwing this onto YouTube as well, so that you can see the cards that I'm talking about as I talk through them. So definitely I will go ahead and link that into our description as well. Once I am able to get that edited, it's going to be a lot easier to, of course, get the podcast out and then do the editing before I am able to get the YouTube video out. But I will definitely be trying to get that YouTube out as quickly as possible for all of you out there. As always, give me a follow and a like on Facebook. I also am on Twitter as well as Instagram. So if you want to follow me there, you can do so. And again, I just want to thank everyone for listening. And again, I do want to say, may the Force be with you.